Hello, it's Shadow the Rat, and today's video will be about how you can train your rats to stay inside their playpen. Now, if you have a cardboard playpen like mine, the rats can easily jump out or dig out if they really feel like it. So it's really important to teach them to stay inside and to just communicate with you, which in this case my rats do by jumping onto my shoulder, that they want out. Now, initially you might think, okay, so my rat wants out of the playpen, but they don't want back into the cage. They just want out so they can play in a bigger area. And this is usually true. However, we can teach the rats through habit and through preventing them from actually getting out that it's easier just to go through us and that their area is limited to our free range, and when they want out, they'll just go back to the cage. So the way I go about training this is that first I train the rats to jump onto my shoulder for a piece of food. Now the way you go about doing this is you just take your treat and you lure the rat onto your shoulder and then you give them the treat. Now if your rats are like some of my girls and they're a little hesitant to just jump right up there, then you can just lead them up to, let's say, your elbow, reward them, then lead them the rest of the way and reward them, and gradually work up to just leading them up one time and then rewarding at the very top. Now, I'm using meat baby food for this run because meat baby food is one of my girls' favorite treats, and I want them to really internalize and remember this concept so it will be easier for them to take the next steps later on. Once your rats are leaping up to your shoulder with the lure, no hesitation, just to eat the treat, then you can move on to the next step, which will be fading out the lure. So to do this, at first I just take the food, show it to my rat, and then I pat my shoulder at the very top to signal them that they should be going that direction. Usually they'll run right up, and in this case, you can just reward them at the top, but if they don't, just practice the first step a few more times. So once my rat is running up to my shoulder top whenever I pat it, then I can fade out the lure a bit more, and this time it will be by just holding my hand at the top. You can see Cookie in this case, she runs right up to the top of my shoulder, and then I give her the treat. But after this, it gets a little harder because now we're not going to be showing our rats the treat at all, and instead we want them to jump onto our shoulder of their own accord. I'll just wait it out. You see I'm just waiting with Cookie, and once she jumps up there, I immediately give her the treat and put her down. Once your rats are jumping up to your shoulder every once in a while for a treat, you can begin to move on to the next step, which will be teaching our rats that jumping onto our shoulder means going back to the cage. So to do this, at first you want to keep rewarding with the food because you still want this to be a very positive experience for the rats so they remember what they're doing. When your rat jumps up to your shoulder, give them a piece of treat, then get up like I'm doing in this video, and then move on to putting the rat back in the cage. Now, at first we don't want to keep our rats in the cage too long because we want them to see this as a game of sorts. Go back to the cage, go back to the playpen, rinse and repeat, just going back over and over. And I find that rats really like having a way of telling you how to do something, so they'll continue to repeat it over and over. Now at this point you can begin to stop feeding treats every time they jump up because you want them to equate jumping onto your shoulder with going back to the cage, not with getting a treat. So your rat will jump up, you'll put them back in the cage, you'll bring them out, and so on and so on. But after you repeat this a few times, we want to start leaving them in for longer and longer periods of time. Because we want the rat to eventually realize that when they jump up onto our shoulder, we're going to put them up for good, and that will be the end of playtime for the night. So the way I do this is at first when the rat jumps up to my shoulder, I might put them in the cage for, let's say, 15 to 30 seconds, then take them out. But after I repeat this maybe 5 or 6 times, I'll move on to, let's say, putting them into the cage for a minute or so, then again repeat 5 or 6 times, then I'll keep them in the cage for 5 minutes, repeat 5 or 6 times, then maybe 30 minutes, and again, repeat a few times, and then after that I'll start implementing my, once you ask to go back, it's permanent policy. Now the one exception I make is if the rats get very excited at the start of playing. Sometimes they do and they'll jump onto my shoulder just for fun, and these times I won't put them up because I don't want to shortchange them of playing just because they got a little too excited. But otherwise, if they ask to go up in the middle of playtime, I'll put them up and that's pretty much it. And after that, they'll pretty much go to sleep, so I know they probably understand that after I put them up, they're going to be left in the cage for the rest of the night. Now, the other side of this training is preventing your rat from jumping out of the playpen, and this is going to be especially important in the beginning of training. Because if your rat has already developed a habit of jumping out of the playpen or digging out, then they're going to see no reason why they should switch to just jumping onto your shoulder. So in the beginning, it's going to be a lot of, okay, your rat's trying to jump out of the playpen, you distract them, maybe you clap, maybe you snap your fingers, and when the rat turns around to look at you, you use a treat to lure them up to your shoulder, then put them away in the cage. And you want to repeat this over and over until the rats are beginning to realize that, oh, jumping onto your shoulder is a much easier method of communicating and it gets me what I want faster. And then over time this will become a habit and you'll be able to, let's say, just watch a movie or read a book or play on your phone or whatever you do when your rats are playing around. and your rats will be happy to run around, and then when they want to go back to the cage, they'll jump onto your shoulder to signal that it's time to put them away. That's basically all I have to say about this training method. Thank you for watching, and I hope this was helpful, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!